Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat. I like to read dark and weird books, even better if they are queer and or translated. It has been ages since I've done that intro. It's been ages since I have filmed, months and months. So, hello. Lots of good things happening in my life, my family's life, and we've just been super busy. And I figured the easiest way to catch up with you all is if I do my worst books of the year so far and my best books of the year so far. And we're gonna start out with the worst books because it'll get me back into the rhythm of talking, and it's also fun to roast some books. I have had a really weird reading year so far. I have read, I think, 45, 46 books to completion, and I have DNF'd 25 books. So I have a 1/3 DNF rate. I really don't mess around with books that I'm not having a good time with. So without further ado, we are going to get into my worst books of the year, and I have split them into 3 categories. Number 1, which is the least bad tier, is boring, nothing to work with. So like, what was happening? Don't know. Tier 2, undercooked. It had really good ingredients, but it just did not work out. And then the last one is I hate it here, and I really desperately do not recommend these books. So let's get it started with The Detour by Gerbrand Bakker. This is about a woman who flees her family and her husband and goes to the Welsh countryside to this remote cottage. She is really, it seems, burned out and running away from reality. However, nothing was happening, and then she got naked and she was self-pleasuring on the dining table with all her windows open at night. And I was like, hold on, sorry, is this written by a man? Because, excuse me for being a woman, but if I'm on the run from something and I'm really burned out, I don't think that is something that would realistically happen on like the first or second night on the run. So then I was like, ooh, okay, pass. And then I, once I DNF'd it, I looked up what she was actually running from, and it says like, her husband is coming and time is running out. So it seems like her husband was in the wrong, but actually, I'm not gonna spoil it, but she is so in the wrong, and she's the one who did the super bad thing. So no, this was not good, and it was boring and not good. Next is Counterattacks at 30. This was another DNF. It's a woman in South Korea who lives in the extreme Korean patriarchy and in the professional work environment where it's even more entrenched. And she teams up with this guy who they are determined to get pull pranks, but more like embarrass people in power, in positions of power, who are mistreating their subordinates. Sounds really great. However, one of the main flaws is that even in her attack group, she's the only woman and she's constantly spoken over, and then the cardinal sin of it being extremely boring. So it was a DNF for me. And then we have Winter in Sokcho by Elisa, Shua, Dusapin. This is about a woman who is at a guest house in South Korea, and she is kind of aimless when a male tourist comes and she kind of agrees to tour him around. When I tell you nothing happened and it was just vibes, if you want something that's snowy, coastal, and purely vibes, go for it. I was bored, and I did finish this, and I gave it 2.5 stars, but I was not impressed, and I don't know the point of it. The last book in this category is The White Book by Kang. And this is painful for me because while I didn't love The Vegetarian, I really loved Human Acts. Well, loved is an interesting word. I rated Human Acts by Kang, which is about the student uprising and military execution in South Korea. 4.5 stars. That book is extremely well done, and if you're looking for a Hong Kong to read, definitely read that one. This one, The White Book, is a collection of poetry themed around white and white things and the idea of white. It just did not work for me, and I did not get it, and I was bored. So yeah, I hate to say it, but it really didn't work for me. Next, let's move into category 2, which is undercooked, where these are annoying to me because the ingredients were there. Like, I was ready to have a great time, and I did not. So first, let's talk about Hum by Helen Phillips. This is a sci-fi world where hums are both like robots walking around, and also they are robots that can be made into other things. So when the book opens, our main character is having her face augmented so that she won't be picked up by like facial recognition technology. And the way they described the hum with like the needles and scalpels like doing her face was terrifying. However, then we get into like constant surveillance, which is fine, but also add and like the Siri voice of the hums, and I was so bored and annoyed because nothing was really happening. Like, we had that really great, really terrifying opening, and then it kind of did this huge slump. So I DNF'd it because I looked on Goodreads on some reviews, and they said it was kind of like that unfulfilled potential, like for the whole book. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna waste my time. So yeah, that is unfortunately Hum. Next is Pine by Francine Toon. This had absolutely excellent dark gothic forest vibes. We are somewhere in the UK in their family house is like against the woods, and there is this girl who starts to hear things, and her father is, he's kind of not totally absent, but after he became a solo dad, he's not doing well. So he often gets drunk and isn't really present in her life. And these two forces would conspire, you think, to really dark circumstances, but nothing was happening. I think I got 65% of the way through the book and nothing was happening. I was like, I need something to happen. The atmosphere was so good, but it just didn't continue on. Yeah, so that's that one. That was a DNF. Then the most painful DNF so far this year is The Starving Saints, which, wow, this started out so great. We're in a castle who has been besieged for months, and everyone in the castle is starving. And our main lead, Francine, is kind of an ex-nun scientist who has produced a miracle before of cleaning dirty water. And she is expected to perform more miracles. We also have a really dark, like, mother nun and her under nuns who are working to do science and also blend religion and control. But then there's also the king and the court and a really badass lady knight who works for the king. And then suddenly the saints arrive, and they are like, we don't know what they are, but they are beings that can conjure food and a cornucopia and bacchanalia almost out of nothing. And everyone is feasting, and then the three main women are like, something is wrong. Something is going on. Oh yeah, because the other one is a servant girl. Sorry. And it started out so strong. And then every time that I thought something would happen or something would kick off, something did happen, but then the reaction from the other characters was so mellowed out or not played out or nothing really bad extra happened that I was like, you're joking me. You're kidding me. Like, something extremely bad happened, and I was like, oh my god. And then nothing happened after that, and I was like, hey, what's going on? So I listened to 50% of this, and I was like, ooh, I just can't. Just nothing is happening. And it's so painful because all of the elements were so good, but oh, I will also say there was a lot of talking about what is happening and not a lot of showing us what is happening. So like something extremely gruesome happens and everyone's talking about it and in their head thinking about it, but we don't actually see it play out. We either greet that circumstance after it has happened or we just hear secondhand. And I'm like, Okay, would have really loved to see that gruesome thing happen because I came for horror and this is like horror light. Yeah, so that was a huge fail, DNF. And the last one in this undercooked category, I did finish. Don't know if I should have. It's Blob, A Love Story by Maggie Sue. And I gave this two little stars. This is about a woman who finds a sentient blob outside of a bar, and she is really aimless, not having a good time in life, and she decides to take this blob home and form him into her ideal man. I am so here for this premise. I love everything about it. However, this became much more about her being a terrible, awful person who does nothing to help herself and treats everyone else terribly, that like I just could not get on her side. I could not feel for her. I didn't root for her. I was like, Bob the Blob, I bid you adieu. Like, I hope you get out of this story as quickly as possible. So I did finish it because I wanted to see what happens, and you know what happens? Absolutely nothing. And the ending where the main character didn't do anything, but she earns this like great reward, I guess. Complete bullshit. What was that? So yeah, I really didn't like this book, and it's my number 5 most disliked book of the year. Okay? Now we are going to get into the final category of this hell, which is I hate it here. I do not recommend these books, and in fact I actively disliked them, despised them. So number 4, we have, the Germans have a word for it. It's about a man who, when his wife dies, he is offered this basically Siri who will read through all of his wife's like texts and videos and emulate her way of speaking and basically become his faux wife to help him get over the grieving process. However, he doesn't want to let go, and corporate America, capitalist America, does not want to let him stop paying for the service. So, also the like AI of his wife doesn't want to be destroyed. So she wants to get him to pay for more expensive things and even integrate her possibly into a robot so that she can come alive. It sounds really great. I love that. I love everything about that because you know it's never going to end well. However, this is so male gazy, kind of in a super disgusting way. So they ultimately decide to have a surrogate, have a baby, and then the like robot mom would raise it. I never got that far, but when they're making the baby, the surrogate suddenly falls in love with the man and is always like naked and ready for him when he comes in her apartment door. And I'm like, gag. I hate this. Like on the kitchen table, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, like, ugh, why am I here? I hate everything about this. And it just felt really icky and disgusting. And I really wish that the author had, or an editor had been able to see that and taken it out. Because I feel like the other elements were so good, but I just could not. I was like, ooh, I hate, ooh, I hate being in this book right now. Like, I will see myself out because I'm grossed out. Another one that is super interesting to me, my number 3 most hated, is Ice by Anna Kavan. Okay, tell me why. Everyone seems to think this is a modern dystopian classic, and I couldn't disagree more. Because we're following a man who is a veteran of a war that basically caused, like, an apocalyptic type situation. Ice sheets are descending in Earth, so huge crushing walls of ice are moving around, and he, after the war, is going back to a town where his childhood love lives. However, she has been married for like a long time, and you're not sure. It's said that he has PTSD and has like visions. So as he is driving to her house, he sees a vision of her naked and consumed by ice, like in the field. And as he's passing, he's like, I don't feel pity for her. She brought it on herself. I was like, okay. If the author's gonna set him up like this, I hope he dies a very horrible death. Immediately? Soon? soon. Anyway, we get to the husband's house and we get flashbacks of the young girl. And when I say she was a young girl, she was like 15, 16. And she told the main character, like, I don't like you. I'm not gonna go with you. I'm gonna marry this other guy. And this guy is like, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm gonna win her over. And I was like, ooh, double bad points. Die immediately? Jail? He doesn't, that's not what happens. So he's searching for her all around the world because she wasn't at her house when he finally got there. She is missing. And he thinks he sees glimpses of her. And he is going to this different place where a warden overlords over the city. And he thinks that the warden has her. So he and the warden team up because turns out I don't think the warden has her either. And it's basically like this dystopia where men are obsessed with this woman, and she is, we've seen visions of her naked, bleeding, dead, being beaten, being verbally abused by her husband. And I'm like, why is this a classic? Why is this a classic? I hate it. I hate it here so much. And then when I decided to DNF it, I looked on Goodreads and people are completely split. Like, people either really love this and love the, like, slipstream writing style because she was trying something different, like the author is a woman. And then there's the people who read it for not really vibes, not really for that new way of writing, but for actual plot and content. And they're like, what the fuck was that? And I'm in that camp. What the fuck is that? And no, I hated it entirely. Yeah, okay. Enough about that one. So the last two I did finish and I like regret it, but also here we are. Number 2 is Enticed by an Earl by Mary Farmer. This is a historical romance. There is a heir of a noble family, and his father hates him so much for not being a man that he puts out a hit on him to kill him. And when he's being attacked and he fears for his life, he actually is taken under the wing of his friends and the person who rescues him, who's like the notorious bad boy of society. And he transforms into his woman alter ego, who he has pretended to be for a while. But at this point, we realize, and he says, he is actually a she. And she is Kitty, and she has always been inside of her, and she's actually a trans woman, now living her truth to hide from being killed. So her friends help her come out in society, and the like bad boy noble who rescued her actually falls in love with her as a woman, and protects her as the story goes on. Now, like, the plot isn't super strong because at the end, really unrealistic things happen. But I'm willing to overlook that entirely because it's romance, and normally that wouldn't really bother me because historical romances, I find they often fudge things in order to have a happy ending, right? Especially between a man and a trans woman in historical England. So the main reason this is on this list as number 2 is because once Kitty says that she is a trans woman, not only does the author continually write about Kitty in her own head as he and him, the main love interest accidentally calls her him at least once, and the gentleman's society that helps men who love men constantly is trying to help them, and I'm like, it's not a man who loves a man, it's a man who loves a woman. Kitty is a woman. Kitty would probably refer to herself as a she, her in her head. What is going on? I feel like an editor should have caught that and been like, hey, Mary Farmer, this is a problem. Fix it immediately. Yeah, so I feel like the author had good intentions, but just executed it so poorly that it made me so very mad. Okay, and then we're down to the last one, my worst book of the year. And I would love to know what you all think because the reviews I have seen of this have been glowing. So I don't know if I am the odd one out. So this is Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. Now, I will say, Murata's mind is a very dark wonderland, and I love that. I love that. So Convenience Store Woman, I gave, I think, 3 or 3.5. Earthlings, I gave 4.5. I really fucked with Earthlings because it was really dark. And it had stuff that makes you uncomfy, right? Like cannibalism. This book had a really great thought experiment. And instead of making a plot that would strongly recommend that thought experiment in different ways, she actually just repeated herself so many times. So we're in a world where having sex like body to body is seen as really weird. People now do it in a lab. Some men are even trying to carry babies to term. And our main character, for her whole childhood, has fallen in love with like fictional characters. So it's seen as more of a pure love because body-to-body sex is impossible. However, when she grows up, she realizes she is actually interested in body-to-body sex with partners, which is in society seen as quite taboo and like not a thing that's done anymore. So that element in the beginning was very interesting. Then we get into moving to a city in order to have a baby with her husband. Basically the idea of like artificial insemination and different ways to love and different ways to give birth and carry a baby are explored. So it's like a reproductive utopia dystopia situation. However, the way it was told was so poor, in my opinion, and there were so many characters that weren't needed, weren't explored. I really think this is like a writing prompt that the author thought of, and because she has had such success with her other books, I think they let her get away with really something unfinished or like unthought out. And the reviews I have seen of this, people love that it's like she's not making the reader decide one way or the other. She's leaving everything ambiguous. But where they read ambiguous as clever, I read ambiguous as like lazy writing. Like, because there are ways to present different ideas and not be super repetitious. Like one of the main aspects of delivering information, and repeated information at that, was like the main character meeting her friends for coffee or tea and then just regurgitating everything that is happening in the world, in their personal lives, over and over. And I'm like, it's so lazy. Like, it's so boring and lazy. But the ultimate thing that I hated, the very end, the main character rapes a child. And no one is talking about this, okay? It is literally said that, like, in this city that they moved to, the Kodomos, which are children, they dress a certain way, so you would never mistake them. You know that they are children. And it's very trusting, and she takes it and rapes it. And I'm like, everyone who is giving glowing reviews somehow leaves that out of the discussion. And I'm like, I don't think you can recommend this book without saying that the main character rapes a child. I don't get it. I feel like the author truly was like spinning out. Like, there were so many good aspects in the book, but cohesively it didn't work. Plot, it didn't work. Not repeating itself, it didn't work. And then the author was like, I'm gonna hit him like with one last thing. And I'm like, wish you didn't. That was the worst thing in the whole book. So yeah, this was not for me, and it really made me think about if I will read Sayaka Murata in the future, because I think once someone becomes super popular, sometimes the editors or like the publishers really let them do whatever they want, and sometimes it's such a detriment because it's not tightened up. The editors don't actually get in there and remove stuff or like actually give them honest feedback that they have to listen to or at least take on board. So yeah, this was my worst book of the year so far, and I really don't recommend it, and I do not understand why people are loving it so much. So those are my worst books of the year so far, and I will see you in another video soon. I am planning to do my best books of the year so far, and also ranking my 25 dark sapphic books I've read of the last year as well. So I will see you in another video soon. Lots of love. Bye for now. Toodaloo. Bye.